Hello there, I'm Lloyd Evans. Welcome to Ramacrow. It's time for another voicemail. Today's voicemail is from an anonymous caller. Let's listen to what they have to say.
Hey Lloyd, I want to start by thanking you for the channel and the resources that you've provided there. It's really been instrumental in helping us wake up, and we couldn't be more grateful. So my question is about the ministry restarting. I'm Pimo, and I have friends on the outside, worldly friends, and they've asked me, what do we say when a witness calls now? Again, given that the ministry is restarting. And they know a little bit about the harm. I wouldn't say a little bit. They know enough about things and the harm that the organization has caused. Now, that being said, I don't want it to get too complicated for the person asking the question. I think it's important that they have a little bit of a foundation in order to have a two-sided dialogue. But again, simply, not where they need to know every in and out of the argument to support it. So I'm just wondering about that. What can people say when a witness calls at this point? And I've also stressed the fact that they shouldn't be aggressive or angry because this will feed into their persecution complex. I've stressed that it's really just important to plant a seed in the mind of the witness that they might think about later, even if not immediately. They could think about it maybe later, even later, years later, if that's the case. So yeah, that's my question. You're welcome to air it, and maybe myself and others can benefit from the answer. Thanks again, Lloyd. Take care.
Thank you so much for that short and simple question. It's one of those questions where, I don't know, I suppose I have touched on it before, but it's always interesting to revisit it from time to time. What do you say when one of Jehovah's Witnesses visits you at your home? Which, of course, they have started to do again. So I think that you have pretty much nailed it in much of what you've said yourself, namely that the most important thing is to be kind and non-aggressive and friendly. Try to view the people on your doorstep, as frustrating as it must be to open your door and see them on your doorstep, especially if it's a Saturday morning, or maybe it's an evening and you just want to relax any time of day, quite frankly. It can be extremely irritating to have people on your property intending to change your religious beliefs or give you new religious beliefs. As frustrating as it is, though, we have to remember that they are following orders. They are cult followers. Obviously, don't say that to them. Avoid using the cult word entirely, because that's just going to upset them and offend them. But that should be your mindset, that they're not deliberately trying to offend or upset you or inconvenience you in any way. They're simply foot soldiers. They're simply following orders and doing what they think is a positive thing in their community. They think they are rendering a service to the community. They believe that they are involved in a warning work, and they need to warn as many people as possible so that they can escape an impending Armageddon. In a weird way, they're doing it from a good place and with good or even kind intentions. So it would really help, I guess, for people to understand that that's where Jehovah's Witnesses are coming from. And though their techniques are very much manipulative, as I've discussed many times on this channel, thumbnail here, if Tibor is gracious, to a video where I really break down the manipulation in Jehovah's Witness teachings and propaganda materials. The members themselves, however, are not necessarily trying to deliberately manipulate. they're, again, coming at this from, in most cases, I would suggest, a good place. So see the problem as not being the people themselves. What to say is tricky because obviously it very much depends on what their customary greeting is and what they say in their introduction, because they obviously have scripted field ministry or door-to-door preaching presentations that they will use on what they refer to as householders. And so they will typically ask you a question and you will be expected to respond. Now, if you don't want to engage in a conversation on your doorstep with Jehovah's Witnesses, which is probably going to be the case in the majority of cases, all you need to do, at least in theory, is say, I hope you don't mind, but please could you put me on your do not call list? And they will then add your number to a list, which means that at least they will try to avoid calling again. They will slip up from time to time and call on you anyway, because they haven't checked the list. And every once in a blue moon, perhaps some elders might turn up to see if you still want to be on the list. But if you want to dramatically reduce the likelihood of Jehovah's Witnesses calling at your home, the thing to do is ask to go on the do not call list. If you want to engage Jehovah's Witnesses in a meaningful, productive way, as you say, planting a seed, if you're not going into this as though it's some kind of battle, but rather you're wanting to have a conversation where you can maybe say one or two things that might stick in the mind of the Jehovah's Witness without them feeling as though you've won some kind of argument with them, what I would recommend is researching street epistemology, because as I've said, the conversation will vary greatly depending on what the introduction is and the personality of the person on the doorstep. If you have, rather than thinking about some kind of script or rather than thinking about some magical words to say to Jehovah's Witnesses, if you instead have the principles of street epistemology in your mind, namely the art of asking questions and gently challenging people when it comes to their reasons for belief, and basically forcing them to address these reasons for belief in the context of logic and reason. That's essentially my understanding, at least, of what street epistemology is or what it attempts. Then you'll be very, very well equipped to have hopefully a very productive conversation when Jehovah's Witnesses call at your door. But I'm sorry to say, to my knowledge, there is no one-size-fits-all kind of blanket thing that you can say when Jehovah's Witnesses come calling. For the most part, it's just a case of, if you want to engage, which not everyone will, just being patient and kind and friendly and not fitting the stereotype of this angry, worldly person who is worthy of being destroyed at Armageddon and just wants to make Jehovah's people miserable. That's the stereotype that's been given to them if you push too hard. What you want to achieve is this balance whereby, rather than them railroading the discussion and pushing their really poor, fallacy-ridden arguments on you, you're able to ask questions that they're perhaps not expecting, that place them in a position of having to reveal perhaps awkward truths about their organization and belief system. And ultimately, when it comes to any conversation with Jehovah's Witnesses, let's say it's not on the doorstep. Let's say you're in a conversation with a Jehovah's Witness at work, or maybe you have a family member who's a Jehovah's Witness and they're trying their best to salvage you to the religion or make you join. One thing that they will often try to do is kind of sidetrack you and kind of skip from one argument to another. They won't be comfortable if you try to keep them on the one central argument, which in my view is the only argument that really matters, namely, how can you prove to me that your religion is true? If your religion is objectively true, you should be able to present some evidence. If it's just about faith, if I just have to have faith that your religion is true, then the same could be said of any other religion, and I can just take my pick and put faith in whatever religion I choose to put faith in. But if your religion is special, if your religion is uniquely true, and it is uniquely God's one and only true organization on the earth, you're going to have to show me some evidence. And what Jehovah's Witnesses will do is they will skip around that. They're not trained to give you evidence. They're trained to give you what I like to call the box ticking exercise. What other organization uses the name Jehovah? What other organization doesn't go to war? What other organization does the preaching work worldwide? A number of boxes that are not objective, that are subjective, that the leadership have selected, have pre-selected, because they know or feel confident that they can tick them. That's not objectively deciding upon an organization that is uniquely of divine guidance or is uniquely God's organization, because all you'd need to do then to become God's organization, as I've said before, is tick the same boxes. Oh, we use Jehovah's name. We don't believe in war. We've sent emails all around the world. Hey, presto, we're already ticking boxes. That's not how it works. Either it's been chosen by God or it hasn't. So where's the evidence? And ultimately, that is the question that Jehovah's Witnesses cannot and will not answer. So that's their, how can you put it, their Achilles heel. That's their point of discomfort. Try not to press too firmly on it, because again, you don't want to scare them too much. If your aim is to have a meaningful and productive dialogue, you want to go easy on them. But there are, shall we say, avenues that you can pursue. And more than anything, my advice would be don't let them railroad the conversation. Don't let them get mastery over you or get a foothold so that they can start to push their emotional reasoning, which, believe it or not, can work, especially if you are in an emotionally vulnerable place. So that would be my advice, I suppose. Thank you again for calling in with this question. I hope it's of help to you and to your friends in the neighborhood. And might I say, best of luck with your situation. It's never easy, is it, when you are PMO, when you're in an organization, trapped in an organization where you're not free to speak your mind, lest there are crushing consequences. So I really do sympathize with your situation, and I hope you find a way of resolving it sooner or later. But that's all we have time for on this particular voicemail. If you would like to leave a voicemail, the thing to do is go to speakpipe.com/Cedars, remembering to indicate clearly if you don't want me to broadcast your message. But that's all we have time for. Thank you for watching.